What if I told you that the single most powerful decision an empath will ever make has nothing to do with fighting back, nothing to do with revenge, and everything to do with one quiet, irreversible shift that happens inside their mind? Stay with me, because what Gabor Maté revealed about this exact moment will fundamentally change how you understand emotional survival. Gabor Maté said that the psyche will always move toward wholeness, even when the conscious mind resists. And nowhere is this more visible than in the empath who has finally reached their breaking point. Not the dramatic kind, not the screaming, crying, falling apart kind, the silent kind, the kind no one sees coming. Here's what most people completely miss about empaths. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll understand why this one decision changes absolutely everything. According to Gabor Maté, every individual possesses what he called psychic energy, a finite reservoir of emotional and psychological fuel that powers every interaction, every relationship, every act of compassion. Most people manage this energy instinctively. They pull back when they're tired. They say no when they're drained. But empaths override that instinct every single time. They give when they have nothing left. They listen when their own soul is screaming for silence. They hold space for others while their own inner world collapses. And Maté discovered that this pattern, left unchecked, leads to what he called psychic depletion. Not just tiredness, not just burnout, a fundamental erosion of the self. But here's where the psychology gets absolutely fascinating. Gabor Maté observed that the psyche has a built-in defense mechanism. When someone ignores their own limits for too long, the unconscious mind begins to revolt, not through anger, not through bitterness, through something far more profound. Jung called it the compensatory function of the unconscious, the mind's way of restoring balance when the conscious self refuses to. And for the empath, this compensation manifests as one specific, unmistakable moment, the moment they decide to protect their energy, not as a strategy, not as a temporary boundary, as a permanent, non-negotiable way of being. And what happens after that decision will completely redefine how you think about strength. According to Gabor Maté's theory of psychic equilibrium, every system seeks balance. The empath who has been pouring themselves into others without reciprocity has created an enormous imbalance. Their outer world is full of people they've sustained, but their inner world is barren. They've been living in what Jung called a state of inflation, over-identifying with the role of healer, of savior, of the one who always understands. But here's what Maté understood that most people don't. That inflation always collapses, always, not because the empath is weak, but because the psyche demands authenticity. You cannot pretend to have infinite energy when your soul is running on empty. The unconscious won't allow it, and the collapse isn't destruction, it's correction. Listen carefully to what happens in this next phase, because this is where the transformation becomes irreversible. Gabor Maté described a process he called the withdrawal of projections. It's the moment when someone stops seeing others through the lens of who they could be and starts seeing them for exactly who they are. For the empath, this is seismic. They stop loving potential. They start observing patterns. They stop hearing promises. They start measuring actions. They stop giving people the benefit of the doubt for the 100th time. They give themselves the benefit of the truth for the first. And this isn't cynicism. Jung was very clear about this distinction. It's what he called conscious discernment, the ability to see clearly without being consumed by what you see. The empath doesn't become cold, they become accurate, and accuracy, Jung discovered, is what finally sets them free. But here's where the real shift happens, and it's something most people never talk about. According to Gabor Maté, when 44, the decision to protect one's energy isn't just a boundary. It's an act of individuation. It's the empath declaring for perhaps the first time in their life that their inner world matters as much as everyone else's, that their peace is not a luxury, that their silence is not selfishness. Jung called this the reclamation of the anima, the reconnection with one's own emotional truth after years of carrying other people's emotional weight. And when this reclamation happens, something extraordinary follows. The empath begins to experience what Jung termed numinosity, a sense of profound meaning and sacred purpose that comes not from serving others, but from honoring themselves. They discover that their energy was never meant to be poured into every cracked vessel that appeared before them. It was meant to be channeled, directed, invested with intention. And here's the part that will send chills down your spine. Mate observed that when someone finally commits to protecting their psychic energy, the people around them react with absolute predictability. The takers become angry. The manipulators become desperate. The narcissists become confused. Why? Because the empath has removed the one thing they depended on: unlimited access to someone else's emotional reserves. Jung called this the collapse of the parasitic dynamic. And it's not pretty for those on the receiving end. The people who benefited from the empath's boundless giving suddenly face a void they cannot fill themselves. They never developed the capacity because they never had to. But the empath is finally filling their own cup. And what overflows from that cup, that is what they choose to share. Not out of obligation, not out of guilt, out of sovereign, deliberate, conscious choice. According to Gabor, this is the hallmark of true psychological maturity. Not the ability to give endlessly, but the wisdom to give selectively. Not the capacity to feel everything, but the discernment to choose what deserves your feeling. The decision to protect your energy isn't a wall, it's a filter. It doesn't keep love out, it keeps depletion out. It doesn't make the empath less compassionate, it makes their compassion sustainable. And sustainability, Jung understood, is what separates momentary kindness from lasting power. Mate said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. For the empath, becoming who they truly are requires one fundamental act of courage: choosing themselves, not once, not as a reaction to pain, but every single day, as a practice, as a devotion, as the most sacred decision they will ever make. The empath who protects their energy doesn't lose their gift, they refine it. They stop being a sponge and become a lighthouse. They stop absorbing every storm and start choosing which waters to navigate. They stop being available to everyone and become invaluable to those who truly matter. This is the decision that changes everything. Not revenge, not withdrawal, not hardness, just the quiet, unshakable recognition that your energy is the most precious thing you possess. And once you decide to protect it, truly protect it, nothing and no one can drain you again. That, according to Mate's lifetime of research into the human psyche, is not selfishness. It's the highest form of self-realization, and it's the one decision that finally, permanently protects the empath's energy forever. Thank you so much for staying with me through this exploration. If this resonated with something deep inside you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today.